Welcome to Married Abroad. My name is Gary, for those of you that don't know me, and today we will be talking about everything dating sites. So we will be having discussions about site types, what sort of information you put in your profiles, correspondence, how people internationally have discussions back and forth for people that are interested in each other, as well as is now really the best time to visit a place like Ukraine in the current political climate. So let's get started. So having discussions about site types. Many different ones out there. There's the local ones. So if you're from the West, there are the ones there that you normally see as it stands. You know, myself, I'm a Canadian. Before I left country, I saw dating sites all over the place. TV, all over the radio. And those are what I grew accustomed to. Likewise, there are the equivalent sites in other places, such as Ukraine and Russia, where the menu system is typically in their language, so it's either in Ukrainian or Russian, and correspondence back and forth there is typically in their native language. So there isn't a translation company or there isn't a translator built into the website to go and automatically translate things for you. So that can tend to be a problem. There are also dating agencies, so you can see those from Google search. So you search for how to find a Ukrainian bride and things like this. You'll have a whole list of sites that come up. And those are the ones that typically places Canada where they actually warn you about dating scams and things like that. Those are the ones that are kind of prolific in the East here. I'm in Ukraine right now. And those are the ones that you typically find where you have some various roadblocks that you need to be kind of mindful for. And honestly, I was trapped in those. I ended up going and meeting several different people, and I had everything happen from people trying to take me for money over time to being catfished, where I was probably talking to some guy named Gus that lives in Nigeria. So I really don't want to see that happen for you, because it's very demoralizing and it's hard to find love that way. In reality, it kind of puts you at a setback and you don't really want to pursue things any further. Then there are the dating tour sites. So there are ones where you can go and book trips. So it is a kind of a combination of dating meets vacation. So those have sprouted up in various different places. I've seen them in Russia as well as Ukraine. What ends up happening is you book a package where you have a predetermined hotel, you have restaurants you eat at, and during your trip there, not only do you go and see these various different sites that may be of interest, but at the same time you also out on a whole slew of dates and you meet a lot of women. These travel agencies partner with dating agencies to create a total package for you to go and meet women, see a different culture at the same time. There are some international dating sites out there that are legitimate. So their goal is to have a platform where lots of different people go to and they meet each other, and they're from various different walks of life and cultures. So I was on some of those. As a Canadian, I went there, English speaker, and I met people from various different countries. I selected my language and things were translated over to English for me. It was very easy to converse with people, but it is very, very expensive, because in a lot of cases you pay for every kind of interaction you have on those sites. So be cautious of that, because time flies when you're having fun and you can end up spending an awful lot of money for getting very little back in return, other than broken heart and a lot of false promises. When you go on these sites, there are various different ones that are decent. The ones that I find, if you want to find someone that is from Ukraine, for example, such as my wife, you tend to go to their local sites and you look for a bride that way. And when you're corresponding with these people, you need to really pay attention to what the content is. For example, in the East, in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, it is a very big industry thing where there are agencies and companies that are formed strictly to make money off of you. And so you need to watch for people that work for these agencies. They go and apply and put their profiles in these dating sites. So you need to know what you're looking for. In those, there are a couple different things to pay attention to. When I was first on there, I thought, okay, well, these profiles look fantastic. Look at these women, they're gorgeous. Oh my God. Now, you need to look beyond that. So, for example, you may look at some of these photos. For example, photos with horses and photos in fields of flowers and things like that, and you go, wow, do they really dress like that? Well, honestly, no. Women in the East typically dress better than women in the West. You won't find them going outdoors in yoga pants walking around town. They typically dress up very nicely and they have a good fashion sense. Now, what ends up happening for these sites is, yes, the women take pride in their appearance and they view getting prepared for a dating site as a formal event. So what they will do is they will actually go and do a formal photo shoot for the dating site and upload photos. So when you see those photos, don't be alarmed. It is not necessarily a scam, although you have to gauge each one independently and look for various different clues to interpret whether or not it truly is a scam, because there are ones out there that you need to watch for. Likewise, I've found, especially in Ukraine, that a lot of the women will have a difficult time saying that they speak English. English is something that is taught in school. It is taught from a young age, from elementary all the way up. It is not uncommon for people to be able to speak some form of English or know a little bit, but the people are very humble, and what they will do is they will say, no, I don't speak the language, or chut-chut, they'll say, which is very small, meaning that they speak very little of the language. Typically, they can pick up a lot more than you think they can. So they are very serious about finding a partner. So what they will do, and this is the case with a couple of women that I've met, they have literally every word I've typed in a message, every word I've sent in a chat, they have copied it and pasted it into Translate, and then they go and look and see what Google has told them you have said. You need to be very careful of that, because Google tries to translate not only word for word, but also what the intent of the paragraph or intent of the subject is. So what you end up doing, the more letters and words you type into Google, the more it tries to predict, and the message that the woman receives on the other end is not what you intended. You can practice this with Google Translate. You can put in a whole few words, which is best. Google gets it every time, it's fine, not a problem. But if you type anything beyond that, such as a paragraph, what ends up happening is as soon as you hit translate, it goes and translates what it thinks you're meaning, and it manipulates that, and it ends up being wrong. So what you can do is, once you get the Russian or the Ukrainian version of that, you can copy the text, change it back so you're translating from Russian to English, paste it in, and see what it thinks you said. And that will prove to you that you can't always trust what Google Translate says. So when you use translation apps, please make sure that you use small, short, discrete sentences, and you translate those instead of writing a big long paragraph or a long sentence and assume that the translation software will get it right, because chances are it really won't. In the East, family is a big thing. Families are what makes the women prosper, it makes them happy, and that's what they live for. So don't be surprised you end up seeing on a dating app or on a website where they say that they have children and they're under, let's say, 25. Don't be surprised if those children still live at home. Mindful of that, pay attention. These dating sites should say, okay, do you have children, yes or no? In some instances, they'll say what age they are. Well, don't gauge the age, meaning whether or not they will actually still be living at home. Because typical in the West, you know, kids leave home anywhere from 18 to 25, depending on if they're in school. Chances are in the East, most of the time, if they're under 30, they're still at home, unless they're married. So pay attention to that, and make sure that you ask questions whether or not you have children or that are living within the home. Another one to watch for is occupation. So when I was in the West, I was reading these dating profiles, and it is not uncommon in the East for people to have very long, lengthy school, because honestly in Ukraine, schooling is paid for the most part, secondary. So what they end up doing is they end up going and they have master's degrees, they have PhDs, they have doctorates, that sort of thing. And don't be surprised if a lot of the women or men that you're showing an interest in, they actually will have that higher level of education. But you really have to take that in context. So when you go and look at what education a person has, do not translate that to their income, because in reality in the East it means a completely different thing. So to give you an example, in the West you have physicians, so doctors, medical doctors. Those individuals in the West, typically if they're a specialist, they're making over $200,000 a year. If they're not a specialist, they're a regular general practitioner, they're making, you know, $125,000 a year after they take their overhead off for their clinic. Well, that, if you translate it over, I have a friend of mine, for example, a lady that I know and I deeply respect. Hello. You know who you are. She, in turn, is a medical doctor. She is an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and she is the department head in a hospital in Ukraine. Now, you would think, wow, okay, that's accomplished. That's, you know, I spoke to her and I think she has 10 years of education, post-secondary, so a lot of school. She makes $600 US per month. That is how much she makes. So you can't take what an occupation is and equate that to salary, because they are not the same. So you have to take that into context, and likewise, if you're intending on having that individual, whether it be he or she, move to the West, you have to keep in mind that their education, even though they have a high level of education, is not equivalent to those in the West. So a medical doctor in Ukraine cannot go to Canada and practice as a medical doctor without having to do catch-up courses and get recertified in various different things. So please keep that in mind. When you're talking over dating sites, correspondence, writing letters, doing videos, chatting, messaging, that sort of thing. There are various different means to accomplish it, and we will talk about a few of them. So first one, letter writing. I will tell you right now, I can bring up websites that there are job postings out there in Ukraine, written in Ukrainian, written in Russian, specifically coming in some instances from Odessa, where there's a lot of dating agencies. They post jobs for letter writing. And what that is a money suck. So what ends up happening there is you go and they say, okay, it'll cost you X amount of dollars to write a letter to a girl that you like or a guy that you like. And what ends up happening is it costs you a lot of money, and you're actually corresponding with a professional letter writer, a person that their wage and salary is to do nothing other than to talk and be a pen pal back and forth. Color me wrong, but that is not what you want out of a date. So be very careful when you sign up for a dating site or anything along that line, and it involves letter writing where you pay per letter, because that, most cases, is a ripoff. Messaging, sending messages back and forth. I already alluded to the issues related to Google and doing the Google Translate, so please keep that in mind if you go and end up in chat sessions. There are multiple different types of sites out there. There are ones where the chatting and messaging is free, where it won't cost you anything other than a bulk amount to be part of that package, where you can chat for free back and forth for a period of time. Or on some sites, such as the one we're starting up, married-abroad.com, the men can go and sign up and they get a bulk package that includes messaging back and forth to people, and the women, it's free. So sorry guys, That's just the way it works. Trying to help women in the East find suitable and half-decent men in the West. Messaging and chat. So pay attention to those. Short, brief messages back and forth. A lot of packages offer that. Be careful because many of them, especially dating sites in the East, don't do translate, so you have to make sure that you correspond back and forth. In some instances, be very cautious of the person you're speaking to where English is not their native tongue, going and misinterpreting what you're saying. That happens a lot. Honestly, I was in a relationship for 6 months with a woman, and that is a problem that I ran into, where I went and was sending messages back and forth. My meaning behind what I was saying was getting lost in translation and landing upon her in a bad way. And unfortunately, the relationship didn't last for various different reasons, but needless to say, you have to be very careful what you say, because what you intend and how she perceives it in Russian, in her case, was completely different. So you have to watch for that. That is a huge one for that. If the individual you're speaking to is not fluent in English, I would say be very, very, very careful of being in chat, because even if they know a little bit of English, it's easy for you to say something and it come across wrong, and it's very hard to undo that. And likewise, if you're doing translate, copy and paste, it's even worse. So be very careful and stay away from the chats unless the person you're speaking to has a high level of English proficiency, such as Natalie on my side. She was very good in English, so we were able to converse back and forth without any problem. When it comes to giving personal details, so giving your deets, so giving your email address, giving your phone number, that is very common in the East. Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, they're very trusting, and they very aptly will give email addresses, and they will equally as aptly give their phone number. Because when they converse in the East, so how we do it in North America is we typically do text messaging using the native app within the software platform. So iPhone, you've got iMessenger, and Android, you've got equally a messenger. What they use mostly in the East is they use Viber. So Viber is a Russian platform. Be very careful about giving personal details on it, because it is a foreign platform where they can monitor, and it isn't necessarily encrypted. Cautious about that, sending credit card info, anything like that through Viber, be cautious. WhatsApp does encrypt, but WhatsApp, due to who owns it now, by Facebook, so they record and monitor and keep everything to eternity. So again, be very cautious about that. If you want to converse back and forth with someone that you're starting to know, I would recommend Telegram. That one is, they don't record your information and they do encrypt end-to-end. So I would trust that one before I trust WhatsApp, who records everything, and Viber, which is not totally encrypted and owned by a foreign power. So that being said, giving your email address. Now, be careful doing this, because that is how I got stuck into sending a message and having letters and emails bouncing back and forth. Quite a few people at various different times. Many of them catfish. So what ends up happening is they were sending me photos and I'm going, this can't be real. I start looking at things like geolocation, so latitude and longitude of where the photo was taken, looking at the metadata of the photo and various different things, trying to prove whether or not this person is real. Most cases it ended up being fake. Very careful when they ask for your email address right away and they want to get off the platform, so get off of the dating site. A lot of times that is a scam. So be very, very careful doing that, because they will suck you in and you will forever be writing letters, and then they will be talking about money. So the last part is, should you visit and meet someone over in the East? I've been here in Ukraine for the last year and a half. I've got a loved one, I've got a family here now, and I met her 2 years ago and things sprouted on and away we go. I received notices from the embassy. The Canadian embassy has sent me messages saying, okay, first, be very cautious, okay? Stay away from Crimea, stay away from Donbass area in the eastern Ukraine. Okay, fine. Then I start receiving messages saying, okay, unless it's essential that you're there, you should not travel to Ukraine. Okay. Then I get a message from the embassy, unless it's really essential for you to be in Ukraine, we want you to leave. Okay. Now the latest. If you are in Ukraine, we want you to leave. No ands, ifs, or buts. So is it a good time to travel here when the governments, so the UK, the US, and Canada have all said not to travel there, and likewise that all non-essential personnel and their families in the embassies have been sent back home to Canada, UK, US, and what they have also done is, talking to Natalie, they said she has some friends that work for US companies, and those that are from US that are working full-time permanently in Ukraine, they have been sent home, so they're not here. Traveling. Should you travel to Ukraine? I'm going to do a video about my context and my view on should you travel here for dating purposes or business purposes or whatever. I'm going to do a separate video, so watch for that, you know. So please do the thumbs up if you like this video, comments down below and I'll reply to them. Please subscribe, it helps out the channel and it'll help us grow and get the word out. So enough of advertising. So should you visit to meet somebody? There are a couple of different things. Some people have traveled here and the intent behind it was to meet someone, and it turns out that person was fake. So what ends up happening is they pay for the airfare, they fly over here, they end up in the hotel, they make arrangements to meet this person at a given date and time, and the person no-shows. So they've been ghosted. Very demoralizing, very difficult. If you're intending on traveling to Ukraine or Russia or Belarus or any place in the East to meet somebody, please make sure that they are real. Don't travel until you've had a face-to-face video conversation, video chat with that person, and they have felt comfortable to give you their phone number and you've conversed back and forth with them, video, while they're in their own home. So, say, oh, can you show me around your house? And then watch the video. Look for things such as men's clothes in a closet or men's shoes by the door. Look for things such as that, or pay attention to see if it's a set. See if it is actually a movie set or a TV production area. Check for things like that. The costs to travel are not too bad. So if you're traveling to places such as Kyiv, which, you know, the capital city, 4.5 million people, if you're going to stay right downtown, it's very expensive for tourists. So be mindful of that. You will pay Western price for the hotel, and on the flip side, you will be spending a little less due to the COVID situation for the flight there and back, but meals will be cheap, going out and entertaining will be cheap. So I can have a meal for just myself, it'll cost me about $20 for me to eat. So it's not very expensive in a Canadian or North American standpoint. Costs are relatively low. Languages are a different story. So anywhere in Ukraine, you will find, I won't speak so much about Russia because I don't have as much information or knowledge about Russia. There are more Anglophones within Russia, so St. Petersburg and Moscow, yes, definitely more people speaking English. You farther away from there, those places you go, the less likely they will be to be fluent in English. Ukraine is sort of the same way, except for you probably should learn some basic language or some basic skills in the local language. If you're going to Kyiv, predominantly people speak Russian. If you're going to other larger cities, such as Zaporizhia or Lviv, Zaporizhia speaks Russian, Lviv speaks Ukrainian. So the further east you go, the more, so east you will be speaking Russian, the further west you go, you will be speaking Ukrainian. Keep that in mind. Kyiv is sort of the dividing line. So from Kyiv east will be mostly Russian, from Kyiv west more going towards Ukrainian. If you head south, it maintains the Russian. So as you head down to a place like Odessa, right on the Black Sea, that is predominantly Russian. When you're traveling here for dating purposes, you probably will want to either be dating or visiting someone that is fluent or reasonably fluent in English, or have a translator. So if you need translating assistance, don't book one through a dating agency because there are some issues with it and some scams, so I'll get into those later, but you will want a translator. If you need a translator and you're traveling, mail us sales or info@married-abroad.com and we can help set you up. So be careful of dating scams. So what ends up happening is, long story short, is a translator sometimes, or just your date. There are places in Kyiv, there are places in Odessa that do this, where they will actually take you to a restaurant that your date wants you to go to, saying, oh, it's the best restaurant in town, I want to take you there. So you end up going to this restaurant and you end up spending 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 hryvnia. So that is, you know, $200+ for a fancy restaurant in the West. That may be a reasonable price, but a fancy restaurant in the East, you're being ripped off. So typically under 200 is the price point for a very fancy meal, including cocktails, including wine, including desserts, everything. A 5-course meal will cost you typically under $200 for 2 people. If it's more than that, what ends up happening with this dating scam is your date will end up taking you to this restaurant. The restaurant is in on it, they mark up the price, and what ends up happening is they split the profit at the end of the date behind your back. They end up giving it, in some instances I've heard that what the woman does is she gets up to go to the bathroom, she meets up with the owner of the restaurant or a waitress, they go and split the profits out of your pocket, and that was your date, unfortunately. So be careful of that. I've seen that happen time and time again, and it's very well known. That is one of the things to watch for. Thank you very much. I hope you found this video informative. If you like it, please give a thumbs up. It helps this channel. Please go and subscribe and leave some comments, and rest assured that I will be getting back to you with any of your comments. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and talk to you soon.